me, the G-spot isn't in the same place as for cis women, for example.
Okay. We didn't realise that.
Yeah, we sort of didn't realise it, but when we thought about it more, we're like, of course, because I have a prostate, and the prostate is the exact opposite way as the G-spot would be.
You
know, it's like when I was first with Al, I was hurting Al a little bit, actually, and Al didn't really complain much, you know, about it.
I didn't realise until like afterwards.
Okay.
And then I've like completely changed my technique now, and it's all fantastic. But there was an adjustment. Cubby.
I'm sorry. It was like the way you said, and it's all fantastic. I couldn't help
I quite liked it. I was really immersed in it.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
You ruined it.
And the weird thing was, is that as Fox said it, Sophie bit my finger, and I thought, wow, talk about it, like, don't try and suss out my little lesson. I do get why, for safety's sake, the trans community would want to be as real as possible by their definitions, because they keep telling us we're not real, and in one kind of way, for us it's an issue of safety. And you know, being visibly trans in lots of countries, we're lucky here in England to a large extent. You know, it's a dangerous thing. But I remember seeing this video that somebody had put, and it was a video for trans women. So trans women had posted it as advice for how to achieve an orgasm through masturbation. And I thought, fab, because I remember after my surgery, all they ever say to you is, you've got this much depth. This is how to, and you know, and it would be great for an average penis. So you think, well,
and it's like, what if I want penis in there?
Because men lie, so I'm not sure what an average penis is. Actually. Average truth or average lie. But when I looked at the video, it was for cis women. So it was talking about having, you know, finding your G-spot locate. And I remember I tried after surgery, once I'd healed up, to find an internal G-spot, and I just thought, you know, in the words of Barbara Streisand, I just thought, I'm feeling nothing. Because, you know, we have like a clitoris fashion. And you know, mine, quite like with lots of people, mine rapidly disappeared, kind of retracted back into like a tortoise head. So, and then skin had grown over it, so it has kind of marginal feelings. And I remember thinking, and then I remember masturbating one day, and just completely by accident, almost like I bumped into a table, finding a spot about 2 inches above
that worked.
And thinking, this is actually nowhere near this great centre of sexual pleasure. This is above, and actually that's my, I'm not, you know, not Jesus, that's my T-spot in a way. You know, that's the kind of bit where I get kind of pleasure. So if I were to meet someone, I'd have to say to them, do this, do that. You know, here's like a map.
But a lot of people have to do that anyway. You know, for
I think so.
Cis bodies, but
I think for us, it kind of gets so tied up in the notion of a vagina and depth, and in some kind of way. Because it is, you know, it's horrible for some people, because there's this kind of hierarchy of, you know, I don't know if it was the same for you, but when I had my operation, it was NHS, and there were 3 of us in the ward, and literally the second piece of information we shared was about the first piece of information was if we had partners or not. I didn't. I think I wanted to pretend and make up some, but and then the second piece of information that we shared was what depth we had, and it was this real hierarchy of, oh no, the doctor's told me that I've got 6 inches and I've got,
there was a hierarchy.
I think so. I think it became, you instantly felt like you were kind of failing in a way.
I think this is still today, because with the whole dilating thing, you know, there's different sizes of dilators, and people are like, well, I'm using the biggest dilator, and it's like that's some sort of an achievement, and that sort of makes you have a better vagina.
You don't want to be too big though, right? I mean, it's just like there's all these expectations.
In a way, that's so heteronormative in that kind of sense of, you know, and I proudly use a very small dilator, because quite frankly, I just want it to function and be comfortable and not have pain, and I want it to be kind of beautifully right.
Exactly.
And for me, beautifully right means a smaller dilator and having a spot that's really sexual, kind of 2 inches above. So I've obviously now shaved my pubes so they're completely integrated with an arrow pointing right here. Press.
That's great, because you were saying with your auntie who's also trans woman.
Oh yeah, there's I have an auntie who's also a trans woman, and she says that she's married to a woman and they had a child recently, a few years ago, and she said that the doctors were always trying to get her to use the bigger dilator, and she was just like,
why?
I don't need to use the bigger dilator. I'm married to a woman.
Absolutely.
We have sex in a certain way, and I don't need to have a large vagina. It's like it doesn't. Our sex life and my sex life doesn't entail a huge penis entering my vagina.
But it's a kind of really odd thing, and because I think that all of those things need to be challenged, and not for everyone. For some people that will be incredibly important and good on them. But I do think that there's that kind of, it's like a really linear point which kind of gets slimmer and slimmer, and the end point of it is having this kind of big hole that kind of works.
For a penis.
For a penis. Or for a penis, a
phallus of some
kind. Phallus
of
some kind. And in a way, it's so reductive and so.
But still, they don't talk about how, even though you might have a vagina that can be penetrated, it doesn't it doesn't become wet in the same sense as someone else's vagina that was born with it. It can. It's different between trans people, of course, but it's never going to be the same thing. It's never going to work.
But also in terms of the depth, like I know that my depth, I lost quite a lot of depth because I had some slight problems. I don't regret anything, but they were just some slight problems. I think it's important to kind of acknowledge those, because people don't acknowledge those, and they do kind of, you hear kind of perfect stories, and I think it's important to kind of accept that, just because your vagina loses its kind of depth and capacity, it doesn't make it a non-functioning vagina. It doesn't make it any less workable. And I certainly lost lots of depth. I had to become even aware in terms of masturbation. I had to become completely aware of how far I could push my vagina safely without kind of feeling like I was kind of hitting a back wall and kind of like because it's attached. I mean, I don't know how it's attached completely. I'm sure that there are people that are much more kind of medical and technical, but I'm assuming it's attached and sewn to a back wall, and therefore there is a kind of finiteness to it that really could become quite painful, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, I'm just guessing. Obviously sex is just guesswork for me. I mean, I do find it kind of really interesting, that notion of how, because most of us that have surgery, not all of us, but most of us have surgery, are operated on by cis men.
Of course.
I don't know, heterosexual or gay or bisexual. I have got no idea of sexuality, but and obviously they have a kind of notion of what a vagina is. And I always felt like my vagina was kind of constructed by people who had a notion that a vagina would be a place where somebody else would find their pleasure. So somebody would be okay. I could accommodate
that your, for example, secondary.
Yes,
basically.
Absolutely. So instantly there's this kind of so in terms of that kind of notion of privilege that is said at the moment. So we're not real because we've had this huge amount of privilege. Which I kind of take debate with, because it just seemed, we were saying before, it seems so kind of banal and silly and
are you talking about male privilege?
That notion of male privilege. Absolutely.
Just how simplistic and it's not intersectional. It doesn't take into factor any environmental, how you're raised,
being treated for being treated badly because you're seen as a sissy or too butch or
being
whatever.
femme. I mean, I was called pansy from the minute I went to school.
Exactly.
And in a way, being working class and femme and getting the shit kicked out of you
just not
regularly
a fun time,
was no sense of privilege.
No.
What is a trans vagina? If we kind of move away from that notion of being real for other people, because they're saying that we're not real, because in a way what happens is that we then get drawn into this ever decreasing circle where we kind of we can only try and prove ourselves by their terms of their frames of reference. So they will say, well, you weren't born with a vagina, you don't have a smelly vagina, a lubricating vagina, a vagina that leads to childbirth potential. so in a way, the interesting thing for me is to say, well, no, we don't, but we have different vaginas and we are different women. And let's explore as a community our vaginas and what they mean, and not in a way that says, you know, that kind of old adage of I've been sent a letter from the hospital to go and have a cervical smear. Should I have one? No, not unless you're mad.
No, exactly.
No, but what? Because I know in terms of HIV, when I go to my clinic, and it's really important when I go to my clinic, you know, kind of stepping back a bit. If you know, there's great kind of evidence around about 19% of all trans women worldwide are HIV positive. Yet less than 0.3% of all funding is dedicated to finding out why.
It's
just so ridiculous.
So it means that there's no real advice. So when I say to my doctor and say to him, how do I have safe sex if I get sex? How do I have safe sex with my vagina? And he or she says, well, I don't know.
I don't know.
Because I don't know anything about the anatomy of your vagina or the biology or the the construction.
It didn't come with a handbook, no?
No, it didn't. I mean, I did ask.
But
they just gave me a certificate of death.
And all the doctors just say it works like it's supposed to work, and then they just put you out there and they just expect you to not cause any problems. And when you knock on the door and you say, actually my vagina doesn't work like a cis woman's or somebody who was born with a vagina,
and
so you're going to have to explain. I have questions.
Absolutely.
They can't answer you.
Because in a way, if that many, I get that we're very lucky in this country. In a sense, we have privilege in terms of the NHS and having surgery. We can have surgery on the NHS. In lots of countries where that isn't the case, definitely not the case, then trans people are made much more at risk because they're forced into situations where they have to earn money for surgery, etc.
That's right,
But I do think it's really important to start to kind of talk about our body and our genitals, not in fear of other people going, oh, see, they are different then. You do have a different vagina or you do have a different penis.
It's just so cruel to remind someone.
It's really cruel. But I also think it's really positive to go, well, actually, no, I do have one and I love it and it's wonderful and it
works
really sexual and it works for me and like,
I made the best that I can out of the situation.
Completely. It's very harsh, actually, isn't it? You know, when you think about the way that the people that are, and it's odd because it's actually quite fascist for a very small group of people to try and own the realness of kind of genitals, to try and say it's and so kind of spiteful. What's the kind of aim point is that they would go, we're the real club and you're not the real club.
And you're trying to be like us.
And the funny thing is that they contradict themselves constantly, because what they do say is that gender is a social construct, but if you weren't born with a vagina, you're not a real woman.
I know.
It's the biggest contradiction that they actually make.
Well, it's an impossibility for us. What it's saying is actually you can't change. And I think that there's something quite kind of intractable about that argument, which is kind of like, which stops humanity or people from growing, because it just sees us in binary terms and in fixed terms. And actually there's some real freedom in being able to say, you know, you can be this, you can start off in this way, because it's like the whole idea of people saying, I was born in the wrong body.
Sure, it's very limiting language. It's
really limiting language.
It makes you out to be the wrong, like you're wrong, there's something wrong with you and you need to be fixed. And that's just, it's like, that's a discourse that I want to stay clear away from, because there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing essentially wrong about us.
No.
What's wrong is society doesn't accept that we need to go certain ways to feel right about ourselves or feel, you know, the way we want to feel.
That's it. And more than just wanting to be, you know, or defining as a man or a woman. I mean, obviously I identify as non-binary and you do as well, Al, and you've also talked about, you know, connecting with that.
Well, I think for me it's a kind of, I think it's a truism for most people, if we're honest, because I don't think that we wake up and feel that we are, and if we are socially constructed, I think that we're as free, and we should be as free to wake up and socially construct on a day-by-day basis.
Then what does a non-binary body look like?
Absolutely. You know? I think it's that notion that people still see. I think people still get the kind of the non-binary thing wrong, in the sense that they go, oh, today you're male, or tomorrow you're female, or
you have to choose one or the other,
or you will come middle line, which is the androgynous, so that people always go, oh, I can't tell, I don't know. Which is just that limiting thing again. It's like people constantly needing to tie together a person with a set of genitals and that work.
Yeah.
So they know how to treat you. Is that why?
Yeah.
Is that it?
It is. Yeah. It's about how you react to people and how.
And what does that say about society then?
I know, and we do it sometimes consciously, but also unconsciously, because the first thing we do when we meet a person is to look at the way they look and think, is this a man or a woman?
Because...
So then, do we look at a person and think we want to see... And then is the second thing we think about is about their genitals. Is that a truth of people? Is that we look at their face and then we think about what they've got in their pants?
Yeah.
Do we do that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't feel... I honestly don't feel like I do that, but I feel like there's a whole bunch of people that must be doing that. Do that about us.
Because they know we're trans.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if they do that about other people, if that's their mindset.
I don't do it anymore because I'm so aware that genitals mean nothing when it comes down to identity. But people who aren't aware and who don't see the world in that way, it's probably what they think.
Oh my God, we are the future. we are like a higher species. I'm really sorry to switch this on its head. But no, we're not real by your definition. We are actually the future.
Yeah,
I love that.
We will be the people on Mars, just reveling in the new life.
We are evolution.
We are evolution. Because in a way, I mean, I do feel like in structural terms, and if you follow that whole socially constructed argument, we are kind of pushing the boundary.
Beyond.
We are the only people that are pushing that boundary.
That's true. Raising awareness of.
No one else is pushing the boundary that actually you can be. So, despite all those arguments about how you could be butch, you could be femme, we're actually saying no, yeah, you can be, and you can also push that just a little bit further.
That's right.
And it can be meaningless.
Yeah.
And therefore it doesn't have to be tied down. It cannot be fixed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love the point. I love just ending on the fact that we are the next stage of human evolution.
That's awesome. What wonderful conversation.
No, thank you.
I kind of believe that.
No, so do I. I mean, I really do.
I do actually believe
and
that.
it doesn't mean that I want the other people to not exist anymore. It doesn't mean that I kind of want the other people to not...
They just need to wake up.
But they do need to wake up and just really realise that all the things they say just trap them.
Exactly.
In a way, they're not trapping. Look at us having the lives that we have.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for watching. This third film marks the end of our film project with the amazing Juno about radical vulnerability and finding our T-spot. We really hope you enjoyed it, so please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us and Juno on both Twitter and other social media platforms, and we'll put all the information in the link below. Thank you so much for watching and see you soon.